Hi, I'm Bob Ethington.
And I'm Nick Nicholas.
And this is From Akron and Beyond. Hi there, everybody. Well, we are back. Hey, Nick, how you doing?
Good.
So I'm looking forward to our guest today visit with us. In the interest of full journalistic exposure, I should point out that I've been doing music with this guy now for 15 years, I think, maybe longer, and with a variety of different projects. And one of the things that has struck me during that whole period is not only how many projects our guest has, but just how really incredibly talented and versatile he is. And so all along I've been thinking, well, we need to have him on the show, but I always felt a little funny because he's a personal friend of mine, and I didn't want it to be too inside. But now Nick's had about 5 or 6 of his family.
Yeah. I have a bunch of cousins.
So I don't feel so bad. So our the mystery guest is Jacob Trombetta. Hi, Jake.
Hey, how are you guys?
Yeah, when you mentioned his name, I jumped at the chance because he's such a talented guy, and I have to apologize for this show. I'm going to have to step back and defer to Bob since, he knows Jacob, through and through, and I had the honor of seeing, 2 of the bands he was in, and he's a great guitarist, great leader, singer. But Bob, this is your show.
Well, gee, thanks. But by the time we're done, you'll know everything too, Nick. So let's begin, like we often do with our guests, with some pretty basic questions. And the first one is, our title of our show is From Akron and Beyond. You're a little beyond, right? Where were you born and where are you from?
So I was born in Mingo Junction, Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like a little, it's on the West Virginia border.
Mm-hmm.
So I could get from like West Virginia to Pittsburgh, pretty quick. So
Right.
you could get through West Virginia in 8 minutes into Pennsylvania. So
Yeah.
little border town,
Right.
mill town.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then, is that where you grew up?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
Yeah. So I was there all the way up until I moved to Akron.
Okay. And did music bring you to Akron or school?
So, funny thing, it was running. So I got,
Really?
I was a
Running from somebody.
Yeah.
The law.
I was
Changed his name.
Yeah. So please don't air this.
I have to edit this out.
No, I was a runner in high school, and then I got offered a spot on the University of Akron track team.
Oh, wow.
So I went.
I did not know this. See, I've learned something already. Okay.
So I came up. I did running for like maybe a year, and then I quit, joined a bunch of bands, and drank a bunch of beer.
Right.
Yeah.
How old were you around then?
I was what's that, like 21. So it was right after high school.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'd moved up and then never went back.
Were you like a long distance runner?
I was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I watched the long distance Olympic races and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is fun to watch. And I'm the only one.
A lot more fun watching.
Yeah.
So with a beer in hand, too,
Yes,
of course,
yes.
right? So, okay, so you came here as on an athlete scholarship, I guess, or something of that ilk. But then you were playing music. So how did music come into the equation for you? When did you first? What first inspired you? Really, to
I
get into
remember
music?
the genesis.
Okay.
I remember the exact moment. It was like
Excellent. Lay it on us.
I forget what year exactly, but it's when Green Day's Basket Case or the Dookie album came out, and I remember watching MTV's 100 Best Video Countdown on New Year's Eve that year, and it got to number 1 was the Green Day Basket Case video,
Okay.
and I hadn't seen it at that point. I was like, what? And then it was like a light bulb went off, and I think they had like a live show right after midnight. Like they aired it, and I just basically ran around the house and decided that I was going to play guitar, and
Okay.
that was
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I would not have. I
So
would
up
not
to
have
then,
guessed
you
that.
you didn't play guitar.
I did not.
Ah.
Yeah. I mean, I loved music and music videos. So those were always, like when I grew up, music videos and music were just like linked together.
Mm-hmm.
So I just watched it all the time to the point where my parents took away MTV.
Mhm.
Like they got.
Yeah.
And
It's
so I
warping
had,
your mind.
yeah, so I had to go to my grandmother's house. So, but
I'm curious now because, some of the people we've had on the show are, people that, a lot of them grew up in sort of industrial Akron and with that kind of ethos and music was all around, in different formats and stuff. Your inspiration then was really coming from way outside. I mean, I maybe am making an assumption here that's not true, but you're in Mingo Junction. I mean, were there bands?
there were like dad bands, which seemed real old to me at the time, which they don't as much now in my life. But played like Community Days, and they played like Bon Jovi covers. So
Right,
it was
okay.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't really like any like fun like music coming out of
Yeah.
Mingo area.
Yeah.
How about the local radio stations? Anything?
There wasn't. I don't even remember. It was like Let the Lead Out, kind of Led Zeppelin all the time,
Yeah.
which was I was real into because my little formative brain was like, oh yeah. But
So, because we'll get to this as we progress here, but you've been involved with a pretty extensive network of musicians. So you didn't really meet any of those people till you came to Akron?
no, yeah, and actually I remember that Genesis too when
All right.
I met. There was a house show. So Keith Freund,
Okay, yeah.
who's still really active,
Mm-hmm.
had a show at his house. It was his band Trouble Books. I don't know the other bands. And Matt Haas
Okay, yeah.
invited me. So Matt Haas is sort of like this ambassador who like brings all these people together. And I had moved to Akron, and then
Right.
he kind of was like, "Hey, this is basically that's when I met
Mm-hmm.
all the people I've collaborated with for like 20 years."
Yeah,
So it was
right,
like
right.
that show.
Right.
Uh,
But that is really interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm actually glad to hear some of these names because these are people we haven't gotten to yet. 'Cause,
Really?
Well,
They've been around for a while. Huh?
they're to us, they're younger guys, but actually they have, like Jacob, very extensive musical resumes by this point. But yeah, we need to do this.
Yeah, Matt
Nick.
Haas just got done with like a national tour.
Who did?
Back. Matt Haas,
Oh.
guitar.
Yeah, he's a
plays
great guitar player, yeah.
Great. He's been in a bunch of incredible bands.
Mm-hmm.
Keith just released an album, so it's I think called Trash Can Lamb. It's
Okay.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
He does
Wow.
like sort of modern experimental like jazz.
Okay,
records,
yeah.
ambient jazz. which is
Right,
fun.
right. So anyway, enough of those guys. We'll get to them later.
Yeah.
We're talking
At
to
some
you.
point.
So, so you are meeting people. What was the first band you had?
So the first band I had, this is actually maybe a little bit before this house show that I met the collaborators, but I was in a band when I was still in college, and we called it the Trombetas.
good name.
Yeah. So a lot of people for a while thought I just went by a stage name when they met, but and I just played guitar in that band. I wasn't like the singer. And that band was active for a few years, and we actually played Square Records' first anniversary show.
Okay.
And I think Good Morning Valentine, another band that I've been
Wow.
linked with for a while, also played that show.
Okay.
I kept thinking I knew that name, but I was thinking of My Bloody Valentine.
No, a different band.
yeah.
Not quite as loud. So you just kind of gigged around here. What kind of places did you play?
Yeah, it was like Outpost in Kent.
Okay. Yeah.
The Rathskeller.
sure.
That was. And then I forget where. Oh, Lime Spider was huge.
Yeah.
Like that was. I think I started playing here in the era, like in the brief time the Lime Spider was around. So it was a really important place for me.
Sure.
During like this really
For a lot of
formative-
us, man, that was a treasure that we had to, when we lost it, that was, a crime.
Right.
Well, it was the one place that had local music and then got national acts into from time to time.
Jonathan Richman.
Yeah.
And then you saw, what was your favorite band that you saw there?
Well, Guided by
Yeah,
Voices.
yeah.
We've told that story, yeah. On an earlier episode, you have to find that story. So basically, at this point, you're a guitarist. You're playing rock guitar. Am I correct? Okay.
Correct, yeah.
All right. As I've known you, I mean, your musical boundaries were already expanded pretty far beyond that, even when we first started playing together. And then and it just keep exponentially moving in that way, which is something I find really inspiring and fascinating about you, Jacob. But so how did it kind of happen? It's kind of weird to trace because it's probably pretty organic, but did you just start listening to other musics or people, whatever? I don't know.
So I remember I started playing keyboard when I wanted to play Nora Jones. What was the Nora Jones her big song?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really wanted to play that, and so I got a keyboard and tried to just hammer out the chords from there. I never really successfully played it, but I had the keyboard then, and then around high school, there were some people that played music, so we would get together. One of the guys' dads had a car dealership, so we'd practice in the car dealership. But it was just basically keyboard, guitar, and just it really awful.
Yeah.
The mic was always shocking you when you put your lips on it.
It still does to me now.
But that was so I got into keyboard, and then what had happened was I just sort of started acquiring instruments like basses. I played drums in the marching band, and then I joined. Then I started to join bands as the member that could play keyboard and keyboard. I could play guitar, and then
Sort of the jack of all trades guy.
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere you played clarinet too.
I did not.
Oh,
I did
okay.
not. But I was in a band for a long time with someone who did play clarinet really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got into steel guitar from that.
Okay. Right. And I know that's one of your current obsessions and
completely.
endeavors. Yeah. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. This is From Akron and Beyond. I'm Bob Bethington with co-host Nick Nicholas. We're talking to Akron Mingo Junction musician Jacob Trombetta. Okay, now before I knew you, you were in, you'll need to tell me a couple other things that you were doing, but the one that is a lot of our listeners will probably have heard of is 6 Part 7. So if there's anything before that you should tie it into, go ahead. Otherwise, just how did that all happen?
So I was in, so the Trombettas had broken up, and I joined.
Did you take your name back from the
Yes, I took, the Trombetta.
Yeah.
There's only one now.
There's two touring versions of that right now.
There's not one real trumpet in the band. Except the drummer. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then I joined Good Morning Valentine as the keyboard guitar player. I replaced Matt Haas actually, which is a theme throughout my tenure in this area.
Replacement.
And from there, Good Morning Valentine and 6 Part 7 were Al from 6 Part 7 was always a big supporter of Good Morning Valentine. We played a lot of shows together, and then they were finishing up. They're working on their album Casually Smashed to Pieces, and that was their last studio album, and I joined then and got to work on the recording of it a little bit and play some steel guitar on that. And
really? Okay.
Yeah. And basically they said, if you can learn the steel guitar and learn the steel guitar parts that are already on it, you can play our next show, which happened to be at Blossom.
Really?
Yeah. So it was like with Sonic Youth. It was at Cuyahoga. There was a Cuyahoga Fest that I think happened one time, and it was like Sonic Youth, Flaming Lips, Death Cab for Cutie. There's another local band, Roue. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty surreal.
Like 18,000 people.
There were a lot. Yeah. And then the rest of the shows were not. Probably the combined total of the rest of the shows were about less than the Blossom.
Right. Started out on top. One of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was in. I played lap steel mainly in 6x7, and then we went on tour with Richard Buckner, who's on Merge Records.
Yeah.
And then I ended up going on tour with him later, just him and I.
Oh.
And we did I played keyboard, like steel guitar, guitar.
So, now, it seems to me when I've mentioned to friends of mine the band 6x7, people recognize the name, but then they'll ask me, well, what did they do? And I'm always at a loss.
Me too.
So, I mean, but it was instrumental music?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was considered post-rock, and it was
sort of like a Tortoise kind of thing, sort of vaguely.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And it was of the era where they had I think probably the biggest band was that Explosions in the Sky, but we were always sort of that was a little too I don't know, giant mega church kind of instrumental music.
They could be pretty grand. Yeah.
And we were into a little bit more subtle, kind of contain emotions in a more, subtle way.
Right. But you again, I'm coming across dumber than I am. I hope anyway.
That's hard to do, Bob. It's hard.
Thanks, Nick. But I mean, you guys had kind of a national profile, right? I mean, your music was used on NPR bumper music, stuff like that. Am I correct?
Right. Yeah. And we did we toured all over the U.S. I got to see every state, but Alaska, Hawaii, and Maine.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was great because you could go. The nice thing was you could go and play a show in Iowa, and people would be there to see 6x7. It might not be a ton of people,
sure,
but we were known.
There was an audience for it.
Yeah, and then there was a lot of cool people I met from just friends of the band.
Sure,
that were pretty. It was friends through the label. They were they're on Suicide Squeeze Records. It's out of Seattle.
Okay,
so it was a lot of Seattle connections.
Okay,
wow,
yeah. Now, can you roughly what years would that have been?
I do. I actually wrote that down when I was looking. 6x7 that ended in 2007.
Okay.
Maybe 2005 to 2007.
Okay.
I was in there.
Okay.
Roughly the same time I was in Good Morning Valentine.
Right. Okay. And so, what was your next project after that?
So that's when. That's when you came into the picture.
I was going to say
things have never been the same.
So
I was going to say that I was wondering if I was next on that list or part of being on that list.
So I finished college, and I was I want to play music, and then I went on 2 national tours right away, and I'm oh yeah, I'm doing it. Can't wait to the next tour. And then I just waited.
Actually, it turned out you could wait.
Yeah, and I've been waiting. So what happened was I got a job at the library, and at the library is where I met your host, your Bob Ethington over here.
Yes.
Our first, because I remember I was oh man, this guy's real cool. And
this show's improving by the second.
And and then I think our first time that we met musically, we were doing. There's that improv band called Force Field.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that was a lot of Akron guys would get together on Sunday in Highland Square at either the Matinee or Annabelle's. Sometimes we'd do it in Cleveland, but it was like this sort of improv group with Matt Haas. And then like
Keith Freund was in it.
Keith, the clarinet player that was in 6 Part 7, Jen Howe, she played. Like a lot of people would come through and play. Brad Thorla, who was in a lot of projects around here.
I know him.
And that's when I was like, hey, you might like this.
Yeah.
And I remember Bob showing up. I remember it was like 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, and you got a Red Bull and a Red Stripe, and you mixed them together. And I was like, oh, wow, this guy goes hard. Like, this is cool.
Well, it was because we couldn't actually start playing until midnight.
Really?
Right? Yeah. And so,
You had to stay awake.
Yeah. And so it was, yes, exactly.
I thought, man, this dude rules. And then Bob started playing drums with Forcefield. And then from that...
and it was all very loose. I mean, there was literally no music written or anything, or even planned.
It's jammed.
Yeah, and whoever was there was part of it. Yeah, and some people, if there were too many people, some people would sit down and kind of move around. Yeah, it was. I thought very cool and very indicative of, not to go too Akron boosterism here, but I thought it was very indicative of the kind of creativity, Nick, that you and I have talked about in this area that goes back for some decades, really, or maybe further.
From Von Monroe.
Right. Just the fact that, the music, some of that stuff is really good. I have some recordings of that. And,
do you?
And and it's, I think objectively good.
Wow. So I actually talked to Brad recently, who played drums in a lot of it, and I recorded almost all the times we played. I had like a little field recorder, and he's going through and listening to all of them.
Oh wow!
And he has a little spreadsheet that he's marking, like this is absolute garbage, this is not garbage. Like this is, and then like finding points that are like real. Like, oh, wow, I'd listen to this.
Yeah, Brad Thorla?
Yeah.
He was in a band with my son-in-law.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the name of it. Dolly Trauma.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because they were friends, right?
Yeah.
Well, they were in a band. Yeah. Hopefully they're
friendless.
Yeah.
You never know. Yeah.
Doesn't always work out that way. But anyway, so yes, so I want you to tell the story, and then we get away from my involvement. When you can. But at some point, you then were starting a band, and invited me to play in that. So
there was a band. We had an EP, and we were called Comfort Clouds.
Yeah,
and we released this EP, Text Messages, and it's like. Sort of the era of like all that other Akron sort of lo-fi kind of aesthetic bands, so like Trouble Books.
Yeah.
Talons was active then, and so Comfort Clouds released an album, and it's funny, I was looking at the people that were on the EP, and I still am in bands with. I'm actually going to release an album soon, like 20 years later with most of the members from the original Comfort Clouds record. Yeah. But yeah, so we were like preparing to do a full-length album, and I had played drums poorly on this Text Messages, and I asked Bob to record. So we recorded a full-length from there, and then we ended up, I think that band was active for... we were active for a while because we released 2 official albums.
5 years, maybe, something like that.
Oh, wow.
So, like, The Dinner Set was our first album, which I conceived as you could sit and listen to dinner, or like you could eat it. You could eat dinner while you listen to it.
Right.
And then the second album was called 3 New Sciences.
Right.
And that was the final. And there's a lot of demos for the next one, but that band kind of became other bands.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be frank, I haven't listened to some of that stuff in a long time, but you were mentioning that lately you've been doing some solo shows and you had actually kind of revisited some of those songs.
Oh, wow.
Which makes me want to do it because I always remember thinking we were pretty good. I mean, the songs kind of had a very melodic, sort of there was kind of a bossa nova influence, although it wasn't super overt. But there was that aesthetic, I think, of like a Joe Beam was kind of part of it, but with some electronic kind of stuff going on as well. Yeah, I know that was good stuff.
I'm going through this period where I'm calling it making peace with ghosts. And what it is I have...
There's our title for this episode.
It's a great one, actually.
As we... You know, Bob knows this about me from collaborating, is I have a lot of ideas, I get real excited, and I never really, I get some stuff together, and then I'm, on to the next thing a little bit too quick.
Yeah.
Or, I take a really long time to, from, idea to finished product, which Bob has been infinitely patient for a lot of the stuff. But what I'm doing now is, I'm trying to... There's a lot of bands from the past, like Comfort Clouds is one, that I never really, put all the stuff up online. Or, there's no sort of, official bio of the band or, official archive that I can just have, oh, these were the photos of the band. So I've been going through that, and it was helpful. I played, as Bob was mentioning, played a show with my wife recently, and... We had to do a 2-hour set.
Oh, no.
Yeah, which is...
I know what that's like.
And so I just went through and I was just listening to all the old stuff. And it was nice. I got photos together, got all the recordings together, and that's sort of making peace with the ghost of Comfort Clouds.
Right.
With other projects I've done.
Well, see, because this touches directly on a theme of our show that comes up spontaneously on a strangely regular basis, which is the weirdness of being a musician today, anywhere, working out of anywhere, but specifically working out of Akron. The difficulties of getting your music heard, figuring out how, I don't think anyone really has a secret. It all just seems like luck, really, and we have enough examples locally of musicians who have had that luck touch them. I guess currently the classic example would be the Black Keys, right? But at a huge level for them. But there's so much good music and so many, all the different musicians you've mentioned, and we could name another dozen
or more.
Are, doing really, and I'm just thinking even of younger, to us younger.
Oh, that
guys,
band that we played with at Jilly's a couple weeks ago.
Funeral
Proposals.
Yeah.
There are these young kids that are just out of nowhere. They're as talented as anybody that's ever come out of here.
Yeah. But how do you get that music heard? How do you get it out there? So in Jacob's case, it was, to me anyway, even more of an issue he had so much great stuff that was kind of, in a sense, buried. You really would have a hard time finding it. So I really like this new project of yours of kind of collating it and putting it out there. At least it'll be available. And who knows, what happens from that. So, but yeah, so there was Comfort Clouds. We also had I guess I always think of it as a project, but I guess you could call it a band, Watt, which was interesting.
Like the electrical watt?
Yeah.
Or not W-H-A-T?
No, right, yeah. W-A-T-T, yeah. Very pretentiously, I got the name from Samuel Beckett's second novel. How about that, Nick?
Oh,
yeah.
Who? Is that old man Beckett's son?
Explain what Watt was.
So the idea of Watt was I was really into the idea of what makes a local popular band sort of loud, because we were playing, Bob and I were playing these songs that are bossa nova inspired, and people were it didn't seem like anybody was really responding to it. And then I was like, well, what makes a local band tick? So it was like, okay, you got to be loud, like kind
Crank
of a
it up.
rock band. So we're like, okay, we'll deconstruct this into just play chords longer than you think you should, and when you think you should change,
Don't.
double it.
Oh,
And then also too, like just record it and finish it, and just be like go into studio, record it, be done with it. And it ended up being Bob, Keith Freund, and Mike Tolan from Talons,
Right.
and we went in and recorded. It was like guitar, drums, and like a mono synth,
oh.
Yeah.
and that was Watt, or just Watt.
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like an idea. Like we were really into like, I love minimalist composers. I know Bob does too. So like, what would Philip Glass sound like in a rock band? Which there is a poly rock.
Polyrock.
Yeah, it was
Sure,
like
yeah.
a band that Philip Glass produced.
He did
right?
produce, yeah, along
Yeah.
with that Kurt Makowski, the guy that produced a lot of Glass's albums. So they were
Oh.
definitely behind them. Yeah,
And they had vocals. They had lyrics.
Yeah, yeah.
But ours didn't. We were just like,
Right.
Oh.
what would Glassworks be with just as a garage rock band?
Yeah, right. That's a good description. Yeah, yeah.
But that one, I think we're going to keep probably exclusive to Bandcamp, since there's like found out how many watts there are. I think the guy who produces Post Malone records and the
Yeah.
Rolling Stones record goes by WATT Watt. So
Then there's Mike Watt.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's any band name you can't come up with, there ends up being like 3 other bands that name, or 5. I mean, it's crazy. It can't be, no matter how. There's another Funeral Proposals out there. I
Is
guarantee.
there-
I don't know this for an absolute fact, Nick, but I wouldn't bet against it.
Well, there was another Bizarros, but it was like a Saturday Night Live skit, and then for like 2 years, everybody confused us with that.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, yeah.
oh yeah, there's another Robert Ethington. So there's 2 Robert
Yeah,
Ethingtons.
yeah. Like online, if you look up my music, there's another guy that does sort of country-ish. I don't know. It's
Both Bob here is ruining his career.
Yeah, yeah. Waiting
His experiments.
Waiting to hear-
primitive keyboard experience.
waiting to hear from his attorneys. But my tiny little musical career goes up or down in flames.
I did look. I think you had one listener there
There you go. Yeah.
the record label I sort of have record air quotes right now, heavy air quotes. We released a couple of Bob's records, and I did look the other day because I put one of his first album up, Tic Tac Talk.
Yes.
The recording from 1984 that we re-released, and I looked the other day and I was like, oh man, only one listener from Cuyahoga Falls. I was like, Bob didn't even listen to it.
Yeah. Oh.
You listened to it just to see
I
if it was
listened.
working. Yeah. Nothing is more depressing than putting your stuff online and then seeing how little people actually hit it. But that's a whole nother story, particularly when you see other things and they have like 10 million hits,
Yeah.
It's like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's kind of getting back to, no one knows the answer, but somehow it's just this
It's
weird
what it is.
mystery of how that works and the algorithms and the what catches on. But anyway, that's another topic which we've discussed many times anyway. But so there's Watt. But now at this point, I mean, we then moved into the current band that we're doing, which is Glenn Leisure,
Right.
And I'll let you obviously take over and talk about what that's all about. And then from there, I want to just kind of expand this because people's minds are going to get blown when they hear all the different kind of things
Yeah.
that Jacob does. It's amazing to me. It seems like every couple weeks he's got some new thing that you're doing, and the ideas always absolutely fascinate me. So,
Yeah, out of the blue, when you sent me that latest one about the video, you and your wife did, the tomato song,
Right.
That's great.
So we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. So keeping it chronological, the Watt thing happens, and then I guess after that was Glenn Leisure, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Glenn Leisure project. So Comfort Clouds. I was still like, I'm gonna write. I wanted to get more bossa nova-y and just get like more acoustic. And I was like, but I still like it's fun to rock out. So,
Right.
and I was like, I remember talking to someone and we were like, pop music's so easy, it's so boring, it's so easy. Anybody could write that. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
so let me write. I want to write pop songs as a rock band. So that was like the genesis of Glenn Leisure. So one of the biggest influences, which you'll never hear on the record, is probably Taylor Swift songwriting. Because like, okay, I think like the whole like lexicon of popular song, I became like obsessed with at this time. So like, what makes a song tick? And like okay, you have to hit a chorus at 1 minute. You have to have a bridge at 2:30.
Right.
And then I'm noticing like, okay, I'm like, oh, this is, Taylor Swift. I'm not really into like that kind of music. Or like a lot of people are like, oh, I hate Taylor Swift, but I love Ryan Adams' 1989.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's Taylor Swift wrote,
Yeah.
wrote those songs.
Right,
like,
right.
So like thinking about it in that way, and you abstract that, and then you realize that like the Black Keys, if you listen to a chorus, it hits the chorus at a minute. They hit a bridge at 2:30. If you like, pretty much any popular song you listen to follows this formula, minus like notable exceptions like REM.
Right. Right.
So I was like, okay, how do I want to use these constraints and write music that and that's how Glenn Leisure sort of started.
Right. Right.
And
Which in a way is kind of a sort of an old-fashioned idea, because that's probably the same aesthetic that, like Tin Pan Alley writers.
Well, they had the
used.
formula down.
Yeah, or like Goff and King, people
yeah.
like that. Yeah, Doc Thomas. I mean, they were probably writing very much with that in mind. Wait a minute, you need a chorus by there. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
And it's fun to like try to make it seem, like just try to make it sound, use this, naturally write a song like the way I just sort of like play guitar, pick on something, and like think of a melody, and then start to kind of sculpt it into like a lot of cutting. I realized that like a lot of my early stuff was influenced by mid 2000s pop music, which had 2 verses on the front, and that is just it's too long now to take ever. You got to get
people don't have that long of an attention span for 2 verses.
All your studio work, and you've so much of it over the last few years. Did you just sort of arrive when it was all digital? Did you have any dealings with tape at all?
So I went. I remember clearly in a it was a terrible snowstorm. Went up to the Guitar Center in Mayfield Heights and bought. Pro Tools made this little M box, which is a 2-channel input device. So I got that. So it was straight digital. And then I immediately went to this is when I was in college. And I went to a party, and it was like a house party. And I set up the computer in the M box there, and computer kept crashing. I don't know. It was just
all digital your whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a total different world from when we
grew up in tape.
Yeah, and it's a better world.
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
So, and by the way, explain the name Glenn Leisure. People always ask.
Yeah.
Please.
So Glenn Leisure
I want to meet this guy.
is it's my grandmother. Or my grandfather's name. So on my mom's side, so GLENN LAZEAR. I was using my name as another project, and as Bob was mentioning earlier, there's probably 10 different bands with the same name. I was like, well, if you name it a name, there's less of a chance.
Right.
And I didn't look up. There's a Glenn Laser, who's a Swedish DJ. And a lot of people think the name Glenn Laser is
You.
laser. No, so so I don't know. If they look up looking for a rock band that tries to write pop songs,
Yeah.
and they find a DJ like techno music, that's not us.
It's the other one.
Yeah.
Our music, which I mean, I'm the drummer. Bass player is Friday Mike Wilkinson, who also plays with Dave Rich's Enablers, and has been around for a long time, and is a great guy and great musician. But of course, Jacob writes all the songs, and we've kind of moved from that original idea, though. I mean, we're still, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. We're still kind of pursuing that, but definitely we've ended up moving into this sort of quasi-country kind of thing, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I'm obsessed with like Willie Nelson right now, and not necessarily like writing a Willie Nelson. Like, I'm not going to bring a nylon string guitar on stage, even though that would be fun.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of like he could write. He's sort of in that same vein where he could write like a banging song, and they just flowed from him, and like he could play someone's song. He would, like some of his greatest songs, he didn't, like someone else's hits. Some of his best songs he didn't even write, and he was a great writer.
Right.
So I think that's sort of like the evolution of Glenn Laser. So like right now we have a lot of we're working on a new record. Tentatively titled Tenderman,
Right.
and it's very much like sort of there's going to be a lot of pedal steel guitar on it, and a lot of like pedals. Early Glenn Laser albums had a lot of synthesizers on it, like pads, and now the pads are going to be pedal steels, and instead of thinking about, and now it's more like, I think Willie Nelson writes some fun songs.
Taking over for him now that he's 90, 91, whatever. Good luck. Right?
Yeah.
But I really like our music. I mean, I maybe I'm flattering myself, but I think I tend to be pretty objective about music, even that I'm involved in doing. Sometimes I'm kind of like, this is fun to play, but it's not that great or whatever. But I think these are really good songs.
Oh, they are.
It's a really strong album. And Nick, you've enjoyed us.
Well, I've seen it. I
times.
really enjoyed you, but just this is unscripted here. I was driving to Canton and listening to Brad's 330 day. The songs that he plays.
His show local bands.
Yeah, and he played
a
a couple songs. Then he played a Glenn Laser song, and I just had to call you right away when I stopped driving. At my destination, and just tell you how. I mean, it stood out so much compared to the other stuff that I heard that day.
Yeah, it was
so
nice.
seriously, it was good stuff.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It was fun to be played on the 330.
Yeah.
But that song stood out. It was not only a great song, but it was well produced, and it was, you'd remember it. It was catchy.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
So this is going to be a clever seg on my part, I think, because you're talking about playing steel guitar, Glenn Laser, coming at it from a sort of old school country aesthetic to a degree. But you now are really focusing a lot on steel guitar, but in far more experimental context. Talk about that work you're doing, because seems to be really taking a lot of your energy and time, and it's very fascinating. So
started playing lap steel with 6-Part 7, and then, ironically, about a decade ago, I released an ambient album that was it's called On Delette. It was with clarinet saxophone player Jen Howe, and there's it was all on there's songs that we have that are all on lap steel. So it's like just sort of there was this CD. I got it from a library, from someone that worked at the library who would buy lots of CDs. So like a big box of CDs for like real cheap. And he's like, I think you might like this. And I got it. And it was called Cal Wraith, Erata.
Okay.
And it was called Cetus. And it was a hour-long steel guitar ambient thing. It was just chords. And I was like, whoa, this rules.
I was going to say, it sounds up your alley. Yeah.
And it was like only on like they only promoted it in like yoga magazines. And for the longest time, the hard drive I had it on crashed, and I'm like, I'll never find it again. This is so hard. And then I realized I was spelling his first name wrong. And so I just looked up I spelled it right finally, and I got it for like $2 online. But anyway, so I was inspired by this, and Jen and I made an On Delette album, Patient Afternoons, and some other ones. And this was like, I experimented with that. Recently, within the past few years, I bought like a lap steel guitar. Doesn't have the foot pedals and the knee pedal, so you can't. To bend the strings on a lap steel, you have to bend behind the bar, which people do.
Yeah.
So the whole history is like early Western swing music. They used lap steels, and then they were like, we want more chords. So then they started like bending notes,
Right.
and using foot pedals and knee levers. And I went down to Sevierville, Tennessee, home of Dollywood, where the Emmons pedal steel, current Emmons pedal steel factory is, and I bought a beautiful double neck pedal steel, and I've been playing that a whole lot, and I've been like composing pieces for it. So like there's one piece that isn't released yet. I'm calling Ohio River Valley, and it's sort of like this idea, like what does an Appalachian, since Mingo, where I'm from, is an Appalachian Rust Belt town.
Right.
Like what does that sort of music sound like?
Yeah.
And I've been playing that live, and I've been playing with like other collaborators as well. So Mike Tolan and I played an ambient set at the Botanical Garden. And we have another one coming up, and I played recently at a show with a friend, a collaborator of mine, Robin Geiler, who's, we called it Horses 4K. It was sort of a...
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, yeah.
It was very good. Very powerful stuff. He played synthesizer?
Yeah, he played, he had like a sampler and a synthesizer.
Okay, yeah. It meshed well. It was interesting. Yeah. And was that a composed piece then?
That was all improv.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And then, but the sets I've been doing, I did the first set.
It could have been composed though. It had a real organized flow to it. It was very good.
Oh,
yeah.
Thanks. It's from all those years playing with you in Forcefield
Yeah.
at midnight on Sundays at the Men. But no, the ambient sets I've been doing, the thing I've been trying to focus on is like with the pedal steel is like have a composed piece that has, hit certain notes, or like hit certain areas.
Yeah.
And because I feel like there's like a part of what I studied in Akron was composition, and as you know, Bob, I'm like real obsessed with composers,
Sure.
and like modern composition, and like how does that? I feel like I like improvisational music, but I also like taking experimental things and using them to compose.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the things that's been a real valuable part of my playing with Jacob and the various projects we've done is really not only conjuring up the music and playing his compositions, but also we have a lot of good conversations and we share a lot of similar interest in composers that people have heard of but maybe never really listened much to. I mean, a classic example of that would be Stockhausen. In fact, that was something you and I did for a little while, and you did them on your own too. Was our lecture series?
Yeah.
People still bring that up from time to time. This is explain the lecture series. This was fun.
Actually, it was sort of motivated by I went to school for composition, and I was like, I have this real great idea, and but then I found out Luke Ferrari did this in 1950, and I found that a lot of music that was experimental were it was cool, but it was cool in a way that I feel like this is well trodden ground.
Yes, right.
Like John Cage did something like this a while ago. What sort of what boundaries can we push now?
Right.
So I was like, you know what I'll do? I'll just I'll basically do a DJ set that is lectures at a bar about modern composers.
Right.
And I think people who are into experimental music around here will be into this because this is we'll talk about Delia Derbyshire, who was a BBC composer. There was, just music concrète.
Right.
And I felt like we had a good clip because Bob helped with some of these too. And I feel like there was a while, it was so much work, too much. And that's why that project sort of ended.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was a good clip where we were doing a lecture and then a few months later, The Wire magazine would have, we would talk about, I remember there's one, it's Conlon Nancarrow and Black Midi, which was one of the lectures. And 2 months later, the cover of Wire was Conlon Nancarrow. Yeah. So I feel like we were we had sort of we're on the wave for a little bit.
One step ahead of the zeitgeist. Yeah. But the thing that was amazing was that people actually came to these.
Yeah.
I mean, not hundreds, but
where would you do that? In houses?
The matinee? No, we did the matinee and at Annabelle's. I think we did it at Mahal's once.
Yeah, there's in the basement of Mahal's. There's now this really, really nice 70s sort of chic place.
Club.
It was pre-flood matinee, but it was I don't know, it could have been post-flood. And then I got to do some at the art museum, which was nice. That was.
So anyway, that's just again just an indication of this guy's of Jacob's wide-ranging aesthetic interest, and your job that pays for all this is you're in computer work, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
And but you actually you studied composition. I'm not sure I realized that.
I found out at Akron, you can build your own degree.
Okay.
So this was back when they had the course books. So I was flipping through the book, and I saw that there was an interdisciplinary studies. Build your own degree. You just have to write an essay and present it to some board on why this should be a degree.
Interesting.
And
okay.
I was like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And, music, film, and math.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. So music and film, of course, because that's what I wanted to do. And I was always good at math.
Yeah.
And then eventually I went back and got a master's degree in math because as you and probably anybody listening to this knows, there's little to no money in music or film.
It's just true, yeah.
We need to charge for that one hit that we're getting online.
It's me. It's me. I'm the one who's
$1,000.
Yeah, we like to joke that Bob and I like to joke that if anybody sues us for if anybody sues us for the rights to a song, they'll owe us money for how much money we lost.
Yeah, right.
Sample away, Bob.
So there's a lot of loose strings here. I feel like there's so much more stuff we could get to, but I'd like to touch on a couple things before we do end, because our time's running a little low. First of all, film comes up. Now, you've done music for films, and you've made a lot of films. And in fact, you've made some hilarious films, and you make a lot of the videos for songs, well, all the videos for songs. And people should go online and check those out because they're really clever. How does that compete with music to you in your pursuits, or just is it part of the same thing?
So it's like from growing up, I feel like music and video were linked, and I feel like there's probably a whole generation of people like my age that just heard most of the stuff from, because your radio stations are playing like Led Zeppelin, like that.
Yeah.
But then the modern stuff is like, oh, there's music videos.
Right.
So I just sort of started making videos, and I love experimental and video art. Like I'm pretty obsessed with that.
Yeah.
And like using computer, like using my background in computers, I'll actually write algorithms to affect videos.
Yeah.
And then we make like Glenn Leisure made a video that I was pretty proud of. That it was us. It was a version of the band confronting cooler versions of us that were trapped in hamburgers, which I was really proud of. And then
it's available online, folks.
And then there was some other stuff that was non-music video related.
How do you find that stuff? Just under Glenn Leisure?
Yeah, and I have a website, just jacobtrombetta.com, and it has a video section that has all the stuff. Like for a while, I collaborate with Rosa and Ryan Maley from Akron, and we won the second Highland Square Film Fest with our video that was about. It was the complete retelling of the Klaus Nomi visit to Akron.
No kidding.
And we took the article, and we found the Donald Duck plushie they mentioned, a version of it. Ryan found the actual what is it? Like the way to put it together. We put it together. We found the jacket and everything. We found the boots, and everything from that video is straight from the article. Which I think this, and I don't really tell many people this. I hope that they discover if they look at the article that oh, this is like the exact retelling of it.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
But they haven't. So I'm telling you now.
The secret is out.
Yeah.
So to get to the couple things I wanted to mention before we end, I think it's really interesting. I never thought of this before, frankly, today in talking with you, that really steel guitar was something that you got into very early in your musical pursuit. I mean, it wasn't the first thing. You're playing guitar, regular guitar, but with 6 Part 7 and other groups. But now it's kind of, you've come back to it, but in this way that is at times very much oriented to songs, but then on the other hand is a good venue for your more experimental projects and ideas, and that's really pretty cool. It kind of come full circle there. Yeah,
thanks. Yeah. It's nice to add the pedals with the pedal style.
Yeah,
and trying to get that. Because I think I'm going to do that more in like a I want to present that more in like a way like this is a composer,
right?
So
now we have to end this with you telling everybody about my new current favorite band, Phantom Lease.
Yeah.
So spread the word, Jacob.
So, okay. I'm going to do, if I can, I'm going to do 2. So there's actually another new band.
Okay, good.
And we're called Greening. And Greening is from members, it's like former members of 6 Part 7. And we're going to release an album soon. And there's an exclusive song that we can play, but that is with collaborators from past 20 years. So Mike Tolan's in that. Jay Karpinski was drummer of 6 Part 7, and Scott Moses, who was in Comfort Clouds with us.
Right. Yeah.
So that I'm real excited about that.
I don't remember being asked to be on this. You must have missed that somehow. That's okay. I'm just
You
teasing.
guy.
You didn't get the email. Yeah. I sent it to the other Robert Ethington.
He's all excited.
He's
flying in.
in. He's in.
He's been at the bus station for about a week waiting for you to pick him up.
But yeah, the other band that you mentioned were called Phantom Lease. Phantom Lease is a band that I was. It started as a happy hour band with the guy I worked with, Brendan Menzel, and we were working together, doing programming, and found out he played drums and he loved ska music. And then we went to my place that has a studio, and we were basically just trying to make music to make a third co-worker just like grimace. So like the first album was all like
Irritation rock.
Yeah, it was all everything had to have a nylon string guitar. That was the first album. The second album, these are all EPs.
Yeah.
The second one was all about Arthur Treachers. We released it on the 50th anniversary of Arthur Treachers, which they have opened more Arthur Treachers since. So can't say we saved them, but can't not say we saved them.
No, it seems like more than a coincidence to me. Yeah.
And then we had a third EP that was called Deco Danger, and this was actually a soundtrack we wrote to a Canning Convention arcade game. So it lasted for like 3 days, and the CEO of the company at the time had to stand by this machine. So we tried to see how many screams of our own that we could add. So if you listen to Deco Danger, there's a lot of screams. So they had to, in this Denver convention hall for a week, you just heard and then. But now we are my wife, Mary Riley, who is a really great songwriter, and a really great performer.
And you're working on a record of her own.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but she joined Phantom Lease, and the idea is, we all love punk. But like, what do middle-aged punk people sing about? And so we have a song, I Ate Too Much. We have a song, Millennial Boss. We have a song about our dog being growly when we try to, pet her at night. And then we have this other song that we released a video for recently called Too Many Tomatoes.
That's great.
Thanks.
Well, and you guys played your debut show not too long ago, and I saw it and saw you play it, and it's basically drums and a very pumped up bass that you're playing, and then Mary singing. It was so fun. I mean, I was thinking to myself, because I didn't want, as I was coming here today, because I was thinking, like, how can I say this to Jacob and not make it sound like I'm being condescending somehow? But it was like, I was thinking Phantom Lease, it's sort of a one-trick pony. It's kind of a niche kind of band. I mean, because the idea is so specific, but it's such a great idea. I mean, I could totally see there being like, you got to get I never see, how does this happen? Because it's like the Too Many Tomatoes song. I could see that being like a TikTok sensation. People all over the country or beyond making these, with that song, with tomatoes, making their own videos to it. It just almost invites that. And it's really catchy. Her singing's great. The music is great. And
it's fun.
After I was thinking about this being kind of a niche band, one trick pony, then I'm thinking like, now 2 years there'll be like a 3 CD rock opera from Phantom Lease, Tomatoland.
Tomatoland. Welcome to Tomatoland. Or Tomatoland Revisited, the follow-up.
Yeah.
I think the next thing, so that band is very much a concept band, and so I think we were working on 24 hours of cryptid-based music that we really want to play the Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant. They have not responded to any of our inquiries to play yet, so if Mothman Festival organizers are listening, there's a band that could have a TikTok hit that wants to play.
This is your chance to hit on it. Exactly. Strike while the iron's hot.
But yeah, we have some concepts for like the direction of that band.
Yeah.
So,
That's fantastic. Well, it's also been fantastic talking to you, Jacob.
A lot of fun.
And yeah, the show's plenty long, but that's okay. We got plenty of good music here, guys. I get to hear as part of this.
Yeah.
And so it's been my pleasure for 15 plus years to play music with you, and it's been a real pleasure having you on our show. So thanks again.
Thank you so
Jacob.
much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So this has been Bob Ethington with Nick Nicholas and our guest, Jacob Trombetta, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.